Hey, welcome back. This section is going to focus on social class descriptions, descriptors. And so we're just going to classify what is the upper class, what is the upper middle class, what is the middle class, etc. So let's begin. The upper class. And so this consists of the wealthiest people in a class system. They have the most wealth in the country, and they are about 1% of the US population. Then we have the upper middle class. And these tend to have people that are professionals and managers, and this is about 14% of the population. Then we have the middle class, and so what's interesting, and I don't talk about it here, but the middle class is broken up into three pieces. We have the upper middle class, the middle class, middle, and then the lower middle class, which is also known as the working class. And so the middle class tends to include a lot of white collar workers. It has a little bit more of a broad range of incomes, and it's about 30% of the US population. The lower middle class, the working class, has more blue collar service workers. And blue collar workers, this idea came from in factories that you'd have office people have white shirts with white collars, and then you had people who would work on the factory lines, in the warehouse, etc., who had a different color shirt, a blue shirt, and so they would call them blue collar jobs. And so in this class, members are less likely to have college degrees. They make up about 30% of the US population. Then we have the working poor. Members more likely to work manual labor, service jobs, and seasonal employment. And this is about 13% of the US population. Then we have the underclass, and these are people that are more likely to be part-time or unemployed. And this is about 12% of the population. And here is how we set this up. And so you can kind of see, we'll start with the beginning again. So we have the upper class, which is 1%, and typical income is about 2 million. Jobs, investors, executive, heirs, celebrities, some prestigious university degrees. Upper middle class, which is what we were talking about earlier. This is about 14% of the population, and they make at least 100 or no more than 150,000. And these tend to be professionals, managers, and they tend to have degrees or some graduate degrees. The middle class, 30%, and they're making around $70,000 a year. Semi-professionals, lower level managers, white collar or highly skilled blue collar jobs. So maybe technical, vocational, different things like that, and they tend to be 2 to 4 year college degrees. The next 30% would be the working class, which is the lower middle class, and they're making about $40,000 a year, semi-skilled labor, service, manual, and clerical jobs, and they tend to have high school degrees. The working poor, this is about 13%. And they're making about $25,000. Again, low and unskilled workers, lower paid manual service, and seasonal work. Typical education, some high school. Then the underclass, which is only about 12% of the population, and they're making no more than $15,000 a year. And they do seldom employment or unemployed, part-time, or more relying on public assistance and private assistance, some high school. And so this is how we're kind of laid out based on income. And this is typically how we discuss class, is on income. I think I'm interested in seeing what kind of things stand out to you. The biggest, the most common discussion is that there's such a huge jump from 150,000 to 2 million that we should have something in between to have an understanding a little better. And I think that's pretty fair. I think it's a reasonable assessment. And so I usually have this kind of self-reflection about class with my students, because class tends to be a huge part of our lives, whether we know it or not. And so if you want to answer these a part of, your student feedback or your student reflection, you absolutely can. But think about, or if you just want to reflect on your own. So what was your first experience with class? What do you remember about it? What's your family's class? How do you feel that that class has impacted your life experiences? And so here I usually get a lot of comments where students went to a sleepover. And for the first time, they saw an abundance amount of resources, food, toys, entertainment, or they saw the opposite. They saw, they didn't have a lot of food, they didn't have much of anything, different things like that. And so it tends to be whatever the opposite of your life, your home life is like, and then you kind of got exposed to the other side. And so I think it's something interesting to think about. Okay, that wraps up this section, and we'll talk about theory next. Okay.